The rain battered the windows of the old diner, each drop a reminder of the storm that had chased Riley Harper out of her family's house and into this nowhere town. She was 25, broke, and carrying a secret that burned like a coal in her chest. One she'd guarded for years while her family's judgment tore her apart. Tonight, in this grease-stained booth, she was about to tell someone who might actually understand or destroy her completely. Riley's fingers traced the chipped edge of the table, her denim jacket damp from the downpour outside. Across from her sat Mia Torres, her high school best friend, now a stranger after 7 years of silence. Mia's red curls framed a face that hadn't changed much, still freckled, still kind, but her eyes held a new weight, like she'd seen too much of the world. They'd reconnected by chance 2 weeks ago, a fleeting encounter at a gas station that led to this moment. Riley had texted her, heart pounding, "Can we talk? I need you." Now, here they were, in a diner in rural Pennsylvania, the air thick with the smell of coffee and unspoken truths. "You look like you're about to bolt," Mia said, her voice soft but piercing. She leaned forward, her hands wrapped around a mug. "What's going on, Ree? You disappear for years, and now you're here, looking like the world's about to end." Riley's throat tightened. She wanted to spill everything: the fights, the shame, the secret she'd buried since she was 16. But the words felt like glass, sharp and impossible to speak. Her family's voices echoed in her head: failure, disgrace, you'll never be enough. They'd branded her with those words since she was a kid, their disappointment a constant weight. She'd left home at 18, chasing freedom, but the past clung to her like damp clothes. "I didn't disappear," Riley said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was running." Mia's brow furrowed. "From what?" Riley's eyes flicked to the window, where the rain blurred the neon sign outside. She thought of her mother's cold stare, her father's sermons about sin, her brother's smug superiority. They'd never understood her, never tried. But there was one thing they didn't know, one truth she'd hidden so well it had nearly broken her. "I'm not who they think I am," Riley said, her voice trembling. "And I'm not who you think I am either." Mia leaned back, her expression unreadable. The jukebox in the corner hummed a low country tune, and the waitress shuffled by, refilling a trucker's coffee. Riley's heart raced. This was the moment she'd been dreading and craving for years. She'd loved Mia once, in secret, in the quiet moments of their teenage years. But she'd never said it, never dared. And now, with the weight of her family's rejection and the truth she'd carried alone, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "I'm gay," Riley said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "I've always been. And I've been in love with you since we were 16. The diner seemed to freeze. Mia's eyes widened, her mug pausing halfway to her lips. Riley braced herself for rejection, for the same disgust she'd seen in her family's faces when she'd hinted at her truth. But Mia didn't flinch. She set the mug down slowly, her gaze steady. "Riley," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question hit like a punch. Riley's hands shook as she tried to find an answer. "Because I was scared. Because my family made me feel like I was wrong, like I was nothing. They still do. And I thought you'd hate me too." Mia reached across the table, her fingers brushing Riley's. The touch was electric, grounding, a lifeline in the storm. "I could never hate you," she said. "But you've been carrying this alone for too long." Riley's eyes stung with tears. She wanted to believe Mia, wanted to trust that this moment could be the start of something new. But the past wasn't done with her. Her family was still out there, their judgment a shadow she couldn't escape. And there was something else, something bigger, a secret she hadn't even told Mia yet, one that could unravel everything. I have to tell you something else, Riley said, her voice barely audible. It's about my family. And it's going to change everything. Mia's hand tightened around hers. Whatever it is, I'm here. Riley nodded, but her heart pounded with fear. The secret wasn't just about her, it was about her family, about the lies they'd built their lives on. And when it came out, it would leave them all speechless. The diner's fluorescent lights flickered as Riley took a shaky breath, her confession hanging in the air like smoke. Mia's hand was still on hers, warm and steady, but Riley felt the weight of her next words pressing down. She'd spent years hiding the truth, not just about her identity, but about the fractured foundation of the Harper family. My family's not what they seem, Riley said, her voice low. They've got this image perfect, God-fearing, pillars of the community. But it's a lie. She glanced at Mia, searching for judgment, but found only quiet attention. My dad's a pastor. You know that. Everyone in town thinks he's a saint. But he's got secrets. Big ones. Mia tilted her head, her curls catching the light. What kind of secrets? Riley hesitated. The diner was nearly empty now, the waitress wiping down counters in the back. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, leaving the world smeared and soft. She thought of the nights she'd overheard her parents whispering, the locked drawer in her father's study, the cryptic phone calls that stopped when she entered the room. She'd been 16 when she'd found the first Cluia letter, tucked in a Bible, hinting at something her father had done years ago, something he'd buried deep. I don't know everything, Riley admitted, but I know enough. My dad, he's not just a hypocrite about me. He's hiding something that could ruin him. Ruin all of them. Mia's eyes narrowed. Ruin them how? Riley swallowed hard. I found a letter when I was a kid. It was from someone named Clara, addressed to my dad. It mentioned money, a lot of it, and something about keeping it quiet. I didn't understand it then, but I kept digging over the years. There were bank statements, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. And then, last month, I found something else, a photo of my dad with a woman who wasn't my mom. It was old, but it was him. And her. Mia's grip on Riley's hand loosened, but she didn't pull away. You think he had an affair? It's more than that, Riley said, her voice breaking. I think he's been paying her off. For years. And I think I might be connected to it. Mia's brow furrowed. Connected how? Riley's chest tightened. This was the part she'd never said aloud, the fear that had kept her awake for weeks. I don't know if I'm his daughter, she whispered. Not biologically. The dates in the letter, the photo, it all lines up with when I was born. And the way he's always treated me. Like I'm less. Like I'm a reminder of something he wants to forget. The words felt like knives, cutting through years of silence. Mia's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of shock in them. Riley, that's huge. Have you confronted him? Riley shook her head. I can't. Not yet. They already hate me for who I am. If I bring this up, it'll destroy everything. But I can't keep living like this, pretending I don't know. Mia leaned closer, her voice steady. You don't have to do this alone. We can figure it out together. Riley's heart ached at the words. She wanted to believe Mia, wanted to lean into the warmth of her presence. But the fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach. Her family's rejection had shaped her life, but this secret could shatter theirs. And what would it mean for her? If she wasn't their daughter, who was she? I don't even know where to start, Riley said, her voice barely audible. I've got pieces of the truth, but not enough. And I'm scared of what I'll find. Mia's hand tightened again. Start with me. Tell me everything you know, and we'll piece it together. Riley nodded, her eyes burning. She started at the beginning, the letter, the bank statements, the photo. She told Mia about the fights with her family, the way her father's sermons about sin always seemed aimed at her, the way her mother's silence cut deeper than words. She talked about her brother, Ethan, who'd followed in their father's footsteps, preaching perfection while ignoring her existence. And she talked about the love she'd buried, the feelings for Mia that had never faded. As she spoke, the diner faded away, and it was just the two of them, tethered by truth and possibility. Mia listened, her face a mix of empathy and determination. When Riley finished, the weight in her chest felt lighter, but the fear remained. We need to find this, Clara, Mia said finally. If she's the key to your dad's secret, she's the key to your freedom. Riley's breath caught. Freedom. The word felt foreign, impossible. But with Mia's hand in hers, it felt closer than ever. The next morning, Riley woke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the motel nightstand. The screen glowed with a text from Mia, "Meet me at the library. 10 a.m. We're starting this." Riley's heart raced as she read it, a mix of dread and hope twisting in her gut. She'd spent the night replaying their conversation, wondering if she'd said too much, if Mia would pull away once the weight of her secret sank in. But Mia's text was a lifeline, a promise that she wasn't alone. The library was a small brick building on the edge of town, its shelves packed with dusty books and outdated computers. Mia was already there, sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a stack of local newspapers. Her red curls were tied back, and she wore a determined look that made Riley's chest ache with gratitude. "You're early," Riley said, sliding into the chair across from her. Mia grinned, but her eyes were serious. "Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about what you said. If we're going to find Clara, we need to start with what we know." Riley nodded, pulling out a small notebook where she'd jotted down everything she remembered about the letter and the photo. Clara's last name was Bennett. The letter was postmarked from Pittsburgh, 1999. The photo was dated around then, too. Mia's fingers flew across the laptop, pulling up public records databases. "Pittsburgh's not far. We can search for Clara Bennett, see if she's still around. And those bank statements, do you have them?" Riley shook her head. "They're at my parents' house. I found them in my dad's study years ago, but I couldn't take them. He'd know." Mia's jaw tightened. "Then we'll have to go back." Riley's stomach dropped. "Mia, I can't. They don't get to control you anymore," Mia interrupted, her voice fierce. "You're not the scared kid they pushed around. You're stronger than that." Riley wanted to believe her, but the thought of facing her family again made her feel small. She remembered the last time she'd been home, 2 years ago, when her mother had called her a disappointment for dropping out of college. Her father hadn't even looked at her. Ethan had smirked, as if her failure proved his superiority. Going back meant walking into that fire again. But Mia was right. If she wanted answers, she needed those documents. And she needed to face the people who'd made her feel worthless for so long. "Okay," Riley said finally. "But I'm not going alone." Mia's smile was soft but resolute. "You won't be." They spent the morning combing through records, finding a Clara Bennett who'd lived in Pittsburgh in the late 90s. She was a teacher, mid-30s at the time, now likely in her 60s. There was no current address, but Mia found an old article about a school fundraiser Clara had organized, complete with a grainy photo. The woman had dark hair and a warm smile, nothing like the cold figure Riley had imagined. "She doesn't look like someone who'd blackmail your dad," Mia said, studying the photo. "Maybe she's not," Riley said. "Maybe it's something else. Maybe she's my mom." The words slipped out before Riley could stop them. Mia's eyes widened, but she didn't dismiss the idea. If she is, we'll find her. And we'll find the truth. By noon, they'd mapped out a plan, tracked down Clara's last known address, dig into public records for more clues, and, if necessary, go to Riley's parents' house for the bank statements. The thought of confronting her family made Riley's hands shake, but Mia's presence grounded her. They left the library and grabbed lunch at a nearby cafe, where Mia's easy laughter and gentle teasing made Riley feel, for the first time in years, like she belonged somewhere. As they ate, Mia reached for Riley's hand, her touch deliberate. "I meant what I said last night," she murmured. "I could never hate you. And I've missed you. More than you know." Riley's heart stuttered. She wanted to say it back, to confess that Mia had been her anchor even in the years they'd been apart. But the weight of her secret, her family, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead held her back. Instead, she squeezed Mia's hand, letting the silence speak for her. They were on the cusp of something: truth, love, maybe both. But the road ahead was fraught with danger, and Riley knew that uncovering her father's secret would come at a cost. The drive to Riley's childhood home felt like a descent into a past she'd tried to bury. The Pennsylvania countryside blurred past, all rolling hills and fading barns. But Riley's eyes were fixed on the road ahead, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Mia sat beside her, scrolling through notes on her phone, her presence a quiet reassurance. They'd found a lead on Clara Bonetta, retired teacher, now living in a small apartment in Pittsburgh, but the bank statements were still the missing piece. And that meant facing the Harpers. The house came into view, a white colonial with a manicured lawn and a cross on the front door. It looked exactly as Riley remembered, pristine and suffocating. She parked a block away, her heart pounding. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. Mia turned to her, her eyes fierce. "You can. You're not that kid anymore. And I'm right here." Riley nodded, drawing strength from Mia's words. They slipped into the backyard under the cover of dusk, the air cool and heavy with the scent of cut grass. Riley's father was at a church meeting, her mother likely in the kitchen, and Ethan was away at a conference. The house was quiet, but every creak of the floorboards made Riley flinch as they crept through the back door. The study was upstairs, a room Riley had always been forbidden to enter. The door was unlocked, and the familiar smell of leather and old books hit her like a memory. She moved to the desk, her hands trembling as she opened the bottom drawer. The bank statements were there, tucked in a manila folder, along with more letters from Clara. Riley's breath caught as she scanned them: dates, amounts, cryptic references to our agreement. "Got it," she whispered, stuffing the papers into her bag. But then the floor creaked behind them. Riley froze. Her mother, Ellen, stood in the doorway, her face a mask of shock and fury. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. Riley's mouth went dry. Two needed something. Ellen's eyes narrowed, taking in Mia, the open drawer, the bag. "You're stealing from us now. After everything we've done for you." Mia stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "She's not stealing. She's looking for the truth." Ellen's gaze snapped to Mia, then back to Riley. "The truth. You've been nothing but trouble since you were born. You think you can come back here and tear this family apart." The words cut deep, but Riley stood her ground. "I know about Clara," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. "I know about the money. And I know I might not be your daughter." Ellen's face paled, her lips parting but no words coming out. For the first time, Riley saw something other than disdain in her mother's eyes: fear. It was fleeting, but it was enough to confirm Riley's suspicions. There was truth here, buried deep, and her mother knew it. Get out, Ellen said finally, her voice shaking. You're not welcome here. Riley's heart broke, but she didn't argue. She and Mia left, the papers clutched tightly in her bag. As they drove away, Mia reached for her hand. You did it, she said. You faced her. Riley nodded, tears streaming down her face. But she didn't deny it. She didn't say I was wrong. Mia squeezed her hand. We'll find Clara. We'll get answers. The drive to Pittsburgh was quiet, the weight of the encounter settling over them. Riley felt untethered, like the ground beneath her had shifted. But Mia's presence kept her anchored, a reminder that she wasn't alone. The letters and bank statements were a map to the truth, and Clara Bennett was the destination. Whatever they found, Riley knew it would change everything. Pittsburgh's skyline loomed as Riley and Mia pulled into the city. The bank statements and letters spread across the motel bed where they'd set up camp. Clara Bennett's apartment was in a quiet neighborhood, a modest brick building with ivy climbing the walls. Riley's stomach churned as they approached the door, the weight of what they might find pressing down on her. Mia knocked, and after a moment, a woman answered. Clara was older now, her dark hair streaked with gray, but her smile was the same as in the old photo, warm, almost maternal. Can I help you? She asked, her voice kind but cautious. Riley's throat tightened. I'm Riley Harper. This is Mia. I think you know my father. David Harper. Clara's smile faded, replaced by a flicker of recognition. She stepped aside, inviting them in. The apartment was small but cozy, filled with books and framed photos. Clara gestured to a worn couch, her hands trembling slightly. I've been expecting someone to come asking questions someday, she said softly. I just didn't think it'd be you. Riley's heart pounded. You wrote letters to my dad. About money. About me. Clara's eyes softened, but there was pain in them. You've got it wrong, Riley. It wasn't about you. Not exactly. Over tea, Clara told them the story. 26 years ago, she'd worked at David Harper's church as a secretary. They'd grown close, too close, and had a brief affair. When Clara got pregnant, David panicked. He was married, building a reputation as a pastor. He convinced Clara to leave town, promising to support her and the child financially. But Clara miscarried, and the payments continued not for a child, but for her silence. I never had a daughter, Clara said, her voice breaking. But I knew about you. David talked about you, even back then. You were his, Riley. His and Ellen's. He was just ashamed of what he'd done, of what I represented. Riley's world tilted. She wasn't Clara's daughter. She was her parents' child, but her father's guilt had shaped how he treated her, casting her as a failure to distance himself from his own shame. The realization was both a relief and a wound. Why didn't you tell anyone? Mia asked, her voice gentle but firm. Clara sighed. I was young, scared. David had power in that town. And I felt guilty too. I took the money, kept quiet. But I never forgot you, Riley. I followed your father's career, saw you in church photos. You looked so much like him. Riley's eyes burned with tears. He made me feel like I was nothing. My whole life. Clara reached for her hand. That's on him, not you. You're not a failure. You never were. Mia's arm slipped around Riley's shoulders, grounding her as the truth sank in. Clara wasn't her mother, but she held the key to her father's hypocrisy. The payments. The licit was enough to expose him, to free Riley from the shadow of his judgment. As they left Clara's apartment, Riley felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Her family's perfect facade was crumbling, and she held the power to bring it down. But what would it cost? And could she and Mia build something new from the wreckage? Back at the motel, Riley and Mia pored over the documents, piecing together the timeline of her father's payments to Clara. The bank statements showed regular transfers, small enough to go unnoticed but consistent for over 2 decades. It was a paper trail of guilt, proof that David Harper's saintly image was a lie. Riley felt a fire growing inside her, not just anger, but purpose. "We could go public," Mia said, her voice cautious but resolute. "Expose him. The church. The town, they'd have to listen." Riley stared at the papers, her father's signature a stark reminder of his control. "And then what? They'll hate me more than they already do. My mom. They'll never forgive me." Mia's eyes softened. "Maybe. But you'll be free. You won't have to carry their lies anymore." Riley's chest tightened. Freedom sounded like a dream, but the cost was real. Her family would never accept her. Not as their daughter. Not as a gay woman. Not as someone who dared to challenge their perfect world. But the thought of staying silent, of letting their judgment define her, was worse. "I need to confront him," Riley said finally. "Not just for me. For Clara. For everyone he's hurt." Mia nodded, her hand finding Riley's. "We'll do it together." The next day, they drove back to Riley's hometown, the air heavy with anticipation. The church was packed for Sunday service, David Harper's voice booming through the stained glass windows. Riley and Mia slipped in through a side door, standing in the back as her father preached about forgiveness and righteousness. The irony made Riley's stomach churn. When the service ended, Riley approached the pulpit, her heart pounding. The congregation was still milling about, but she didn't care. "Dad," she said, her voice carrying over the murmurs. "We need to talk." David's face tightened, his eyes flicking to the crowd. "Not here, Riley." "Yes, here," she said, holding up the folder of documents. "I know about Clara. About the money. About your lies." A hush fell over the room. Ellen, standing nearby, froze. Ethan, who'd been chatting with a deacon, turned pale. Riley felt Mia's hand on her back, steadying her. David's voice was low. "Dangerous. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough," Riley said, her voice shaking but strong. "You've spent years calling me a failure, but you're the one who's been hiding. You cheated. You lied. And you paid Clara to keep quiet. And I'm done letting you make me feel like I'm the problem." The congregation gasped, whispers rippling through the crowd. Ellen stepped forward, her face a mix of anger and fear. "Riley, stop this." "No," Riley said, tears streaming down her face. "You don't get to silence me anymore." Mia's hand tightened on her shoulder, a silent promise. Riley felt the weight of her family's judgment, but for the first time, it didn't crush her. She'd spoken her truth, and it was enough. The church was silent, the weight of Riley's words hanging in the air. David Harper's face was a mask of fury, but his eyes betrayed something else: fear. The congregation watched, some whispering, others frozen, as the perfect image of their pastor cracked. Riley's hands shook as she held the folder, but Mia's presence behind her kept her grounded. Ellen stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You're destroying this family. Riley, is that what you want?" Riley's heart ached, but she didn't back down. "I wanted a family that loved me. You never did. You let him," she gestured to her father, "make me feel like I was nothing. But I'm not the one who's been lying." Ethan pushed through the crowd, his face red. "You're a disgrace," he spat. "You think you can come in here and ruin everything. You're nobody." Mia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. She's more than you'll ever understand. She's brave, and she's honest. Can you say the same? Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came out. The congregation's whispers grew louder, and Riley saw doubt in their eyes. For years, her family had painted her as the failure, but now the truth was unraveling. David raised his hands, his voice booming. This is a private matter. Everyone, please leave. But no one moved. The weight of Riley's accusations held them in place. She took a deep breath, her voice steady. Clara Bennett told me everything. The affair, the payments, the lies. You built your life on hiding the truth, and you punished me for it. But I'm done being your scapegoat. David's face crumpled, and for the first time, Riley saw him as a man, not a god. You don't understand, he said, his voice breaking. I was protecting this family. By destroying me? Riley asked, tears streaming down her face. By making me feel like I was wrong for existing. Ellen's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. Ethan turned away, unable to meet Riley's gaze. The congregation began to disperse, their faith in David shaken. Riley felt a strange mix of triumph and grief. She'd exposed the truth, but it had cost her the last threads of her family. As she and Mia left the church, the cool air hit her face, washing away some of the pain. Mia pulled her into a hug, her arms warm and safe. You were incredible, she whispered. I'm so proud of you. Riley clung to her, the weight of the moment sinking in. She'd lost her family, but she'd gained something else, her voice, her truth, and Mia. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt free. The weeks that followed were a blur of change. The story of David Harper's affair and payments to Clara spread through the town like wildfire, fueled by whispers and local news. The church board suspended him, pending an investigation, and the Harper family's perfect facade crumbled. Riley heard from Clara that Ellen had reached out, apologizing for her silence, but not ready to reconcile. Ethan vanished, reportedly moving to another state. Riley felt no joy in their downfall, only a quiet relief that the truth was out. She and Mia rented a small apartment in Pittsburgh, a fresh start away from the town that had suffocated her. They spent evenings talking, laughing, rebuilding the connection they'd lost. One night, as they sat on the balcony watching the city lights, Mia took Riley's hand. I loved you too. You know, Mia said, her voice soft. Back then, I was just too scared to say it. Riley's heart swelled. And now? Mia smiled, leaning in to kiss her. It was soft, tentative, but full of promise. Now, I'm not scared. They built a life together, not without challenges, but grounded in honesty. Riley found work at a local bookstore, her love of stories a quiet rebellion against her past. Mia pursued her art, her paintings filling their apartment with color. They visited Clara often, who became a mentor, a friend, a reminder that family could be chosen. Riley never heard from her father again, but she didn't need to. She'd reclaimed her story, her identity, her love. The years of being branded a failure faded, replaced by a truth she'd fought for. She was enough. Always had been. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the city, Riley looked at Mia and felt a peace she'd never known. Her family's judgment had shaped her, but it didn't define her. The secret that had once threatened to break her had set her free, leaving her family speechless and her heart full.